My elder sister refused to marry the great general, insisting instead on eloping with a penniless scholar. Before leaving home, she told me mysteriously, "You wouldn't believe it, but Lin Yuan will become the chief minister of the court someday." That general? He's actually a short-lived soul. My eyes flashed, so she had reincarnated too. That day, envoys arrived at the general's mansion to propose marriage. Amidst cheerful conversation, my usually dignified elder sister suddenly knocked over a vase beside her. The shattering sound echoed through the silk-flowered screen to the front hall, causing my stepmother's face to instantly darken. Yet she quickly recovered, her lips curving into a mocking smile as she quipped, "My younger daughter's behavior is shameful. I apologize for the disturbance, madam. Blame it on my inability to be strict with her. She's not my biological child. I hope you'll understand." With just a few words, my stepmother shifted the blame onto me, conveniently cementing her own image of kindness. The general's wife shot me a fierce glare upon hearing this, making my spine tighten. My stepmother was always adept at using others as pawns. Who in the capital doesn't know that the current general's wife, Lady Xiao, is a second wife? She is not the biological mother of the young general, Xiao Ding'an. Xiao Ding'an is a proud and unruly man. Naturally, he holds her in no regard. I fear she endures no small amount of humiliation in the general's residence. My stepmother's words were clearly intended to ruin my reputation. Alas, in my previous life, I failed to see through her scheming. Mistaking her flattery for kindness, I stumbled at every turn until I met a tragic end. Given a second chance, I shall not repeat those mistakes. Noticing Shenxiao lost in thought beside me, I whispered softly into her ear, "Sister, mother just called you forward." My elder sister seemed off today, her eyes suddenly flashed with pain, and her forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. Hearing my words, she quickly composed herself and rose to walk forward, but stumbled and tripped. She then crashed heavily to the floor, landing on top of the screen. Chaos erupted in the hall. My stepmother, overcome with worry, forgot the distinguished guests in the mansion and urgently ordered the servants to help the eldest miss. I sat calmly in my place, watching the chaos unfold before me. An imperceptible, tiny curve lifted the corners of my mouth. But just then, a sudden chill rose from my fingertips. It felt like being locked in the gaze of a lone wolf baring its fangs in the dead of night. My whole body shuddered. My eyes swept past the tumultuous crowd, only to plunge unexpectedly into a pair of deep, piercing eyes. I truly hadn't expected Xiao Ding'an to come in person. Night fell, scattered stars twinkling faintly. I had been kneeling in punishment in the Shen family ancestral hall for 2 hours. Due to my stepmother's scheming, he had never favored me as his daughter, and I, in turn, harbored deep resentment toward him. Within the inner quarters, from the smallest matters of clothing and jewelry to the greatest decisions of marriage and husband, whatever Shenxiao desired, my father would grant her. This marriage to the general's household was one she snatched from me. Had my mother not risked her life to save Xiao Ding'an's birth mother, the Shen family status would never have allowed us to climb into this military lineage. I still remember that late night 3 years ago. Rain blocked our way home, so my mother and I took temporary shelter in Shangqing Temple. Half asleep, I kept hearing the sound of fighting. When I rubbed my sleepy eyes and woke up, Mother was gone. I got out of bed, put on my shoes, and called out for her as I walked toward the door. The moment I opened it, I was so terrified I nearly forgot to breathe. Blinding crimson, a sickening stench of blood, and not far away, a youth stood with his back to me, sword in hand. Before him lay the lifeless body of my mother. Unaware of the truth, I believed him to be the villain who had killed her. Crying out, I lunged forward, determined to die with him. I will never forget the fierce look on his face as he seized my wrists. Blood spread across the corners of his eyes, merging with the murderous glare in his gaze, making him resemble a demon from hell. "Your mother is dead. Do you wish to die with her?" These were the first words Xiao Ding'an spoke to me. Later, the general's wife brought me back to the mansion, explaining that had my mother not shielded me with her own body, she would have been the one to die today. I bit my teeth until they bled to stifle the words threatening to spill from my lips. Those assassins had come for her. My mother was utterly innocent. Yet, to atone, she had arranged the marriage between the Xiao and Shen families. To me at that time, it felt like a bolt from the blue. simply because I feared Xiao Dingyan beyond measure. Then my stepmother approached me with the idea of having Shenxiao marry in my stead. I was overjoyed and readily agreed. From that day on, I regarded her as my own mother, longing for her to fill the void of affection I'd never known. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was then. Xiao Dingyan, Xiao Dingyan. Kneeling on the soft cushion, I traced his name lightly with my finger. To establish prosperity for generations, to safeguard the people's peace. What a pity! I turned to gaze out the window, suddenly noticing the wind rustling the trees and drifting clouds. Moments later, the full moon hung high, dimming the last scattered stars. Lost in reverie, the shrine door creaked open. It was Zhou Lin Yuan, my father's disciple. And the man I married in my past life. He closed the door softly, then carried a food box over and sat beside me. "Ollie, I brought you some food. You must be starving." I stared at him blankly, trying desperately to calm my heart, yet the bitterness within me was impossible to conceal. Zhou Lin Yuan came from a farming family. His ancestors had lived in poverty, and it was only in his generation that a scholar emerged. Diligent and studious, he had passed the county-level examination last year to become a scholar candidate. Now, studying under my father, he prepared for the autumn imperial examinations. Our acquaintance began by chance, but I was soon captivated by his literary brilliance, and my heart gradually grew fond of him. He, too, showed me considerable affection. Even when penniless, he would always buy little trinkets to win my favor. I accepted his gifts, yet couldn't bear to see him skimp on his own food and clothing. So, I secretly slipped the silver I saved from my monthly allowance into his pouch. Whenever my father punished him, he would meet me in secret, just as he did today, avoiding the crowd. This romantic act of scaling walls to meet his beloved, straight out of a storybook, often moved me deeply. Yet, despite our current closeness, it couldn't change the fact that he would fall hopelessly in love with my elder sister at the future Curvewater banquet. For Shenxiao, Zhou Lin Yuan could abandon me, who had endured years of poverty by his side. Defying public scrutiny, he brought the widowed Shenxiao into his home in an 8-man palanquin, granting her the status of co-wife. Yet Shenxiao remained unsatisfied. Leveraging Zhou Lin Yuan's affection, she made life difficult for me at every turn, employing nearly every underhanded tactic of the inner quarters against me. Her relentless harassment left me increasingly frail, until eventually I could not even rise from my bed. As my life flickered like an oil lamp burning its last, I sent a maid to summon Zhou Lin Yuan. I wished to see him one last time. Hanging on by a thread, I waited from dusk till dawn. But the one who arrived was Shenxiao, her face flushed with feigned tenderness. She deliberately left her collar open, allowing me to see the love bite on her neck. I gave a bitter, self-mocking laugh, then gazed out at the spring scenery beyond the window until my life slowly faded away. That feeling of utter despair is something I could never forget, even if I lived 10 lifetimes over. Now, looking at the person before me, only hatred remains in my heart. I think that since some things cannot be avoided, it is better to let them happen quickly. And what was rightfully mine should be returned to me. I feigned my usual composure, feigning hurt. Father must have grown weary of me. In his heart, only Shenxiao is his daughter. As I covered my face and wept, I caught Zhou Lin Yuan's expression falter. Without the veil of affection, his true intentions were laid bare. His kindness toward me had always stemmed solely from my status as the Shen daughter he could possess. His affection for Shenxiao, however, existed only because she was Shenxiao. How laughable! I listened half-heartedly to Zhou Lin Yuan's hollow words of comfort before dismissing him. Not long after, my stepmother rescued me from the ancestral hall. She said had she not intervened, Father would have made me kneel all night. After expressing my tearful gratitude, I returned to my courtyard, utterly dejected. Acting is truly exhausting. But my wings are not yet fully grown, so I must be cautious. Later, I heard that while I was kneeling in the family shrine, my elder sister also had a heated argument with Father. Though I don't know what she was crying and fussing about, Father has always been kind and lenient toward her. Now he has ordered her confined to the inner quarters. He must have been furious. But that's fine. It gave me plenty of time. Whenever Zhou Lin Yuan came to see me again, I would casually mention Shenxiao's affairs. I wove her preferences into my complaints, feeding them all into Zhou Linyuan's ears. He listened intently, not missing a single detail. As time passed, Zhou Linyuan's visits grew increasingly rare. Yet his spending grew ever more reckless. He even pawned the family heirloom jade pendant. I watched it all unfold with cold detachment, waiting patiently for the storm to erupt at the highest levels. Before I knew it, the day of Shenxiao's wedding arrived. What I never anticipated was her foolishness. She actually tried to elope with Zhou Linyuan. Meanwhile, she drugged me, dressed me in a crimson wedding gown, and placed me in the general's palanquin. Shenxiao disguised herself as my maid, supporting my limp body as we bowed to heaven, earth, and our elders before being escorted to the bridal chamber. Once alone, she tore off my veil and declared triumphantly, "Shenxingli, you always loved competing with me for everything, clothes, jewelry, even mother's affection. But did you truly believe you could outdo me? You little slut, you don't know it yet, but Lin Yuan and I have made plans. Today, he'll take me away from the Shen family. So what if you met Lin Yuan first?" He still fell head over heels for me. I stared at her, my expression utterly unruffled. In my past life, Zhou Linyuan married her when he was already the chief minister, naturally showering her with boundless favor and glory. But this time, the one taking her away was Zhou Linyuan, the penniless scholar. Washing clothes, cooking meals, earning money to support the household, and tending to Zhou Linyuan, who only knows how to read books, these are tasks I can handle, but Shenxiao is another story. Seeing my lack of reaction, Shenxiao actually grew annoyed. In her imagination, without Zhou Linyuan, I should be heartbroken, which would only make her happier. Someone came to urge us outside. I recognized Zhou Linyuan's voice. Before leaving, Shenxiao pressed close to my ear, her voice thick with resentment as she whispered mysteriously, "Let me share a secret with you. Lin Yuan will become the chief minister of the court someday. As for Xiao Dingyan, the man you're marrying? He's a short-lived soul. The general's mansion may look splendid, but it's rotten to the core. You'll suffer there." Her words made my eyes flicker. So she had reincarnated too. This made things far more interesting. The night breeze swept past the window, gently swaying the tree shadows. My weary limbs gradually regained their strength. Just as I picked up the veil from the floor, footsteps grew closer outside. I hurriedly sat back on the bedside. The door creaked open, and someone stepped inside. A faint scent of wine wafted in with the air, sending my nerves into overdrive. Earlier, the general's mansion had come to propose marriage. My stepmother's words had all pointed to Shenxiao. If they discovered the bride was me instead, what would Xiao Dingyan do? Fear gripped me once more. I clenched the handkerchief in my fist, desperately trying to recall details about Xiao Dingyan from my past life. Executing treacherous ministers, eliminating spies, reclaiming border cities, then dying on the battlefield. That was the trajectory of his life for the next 5 years. The extent to which I could aid him during this period determined how confident I felt about negotiating with him now. I silently weighed my words, but before I could speak, Xiao Dingyan had already stepped before me. He extended his right hand toward me, startling me into a cry, "General." Xiao Dingyan paused slightly, then reached over my shoulder to retrieve the brocade quilt from the inner side of the bed. The quilt slid past my crimson veil, knocking it to the floor. My eyes fluttered open as I stared at Xiao Dingyan, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would leap from my throat. He merely gave me a fleeting glance before carrying the quilt to the foot of the bed and lying down fully clothed. "Extinguish the lamp. Sleep." His deep voice rose from below, carrying an authority that brooked no defiance. I glanced at the candle on the table, then at Xiao Dingyan lying before the bed with eyes closed. Biting my lower lip, I resignedly lifted my skirt hem and tiptoed around him to extinguish the red candle. The sudden darkness blinded me momentarily, leaving me unsure how to move. Just then, the lattice window beside me swung open in the breeze, spilling a sliver of silver moonlight inside. Guided by this faint light, I stumbled back to the bed. My hairpin remained undone, and the several gold hairpins fastened in it pressed uncomfortably against my scalp, making sleep impossible. As I tossed and turned restlessly, I disturbed Xiao Dingyan, whose clenched fists creaked audibly. Hearing the sound, I dared not move again, straightening my body rigidly. When sleep eluded me, thoughts raced through my mind. Recalling the fleeting glimpse of red I'd caught earlier, words slipped out before I could stop them. General, are you injured? The moment I spoke, I regretted it. Yet that faint whisper echoed eerily loud in the silent night. A long moment passed without a reply. I felt a flicker of relief. Xiao Dingyan must have fallen asleep. Just as my heart settled back into my chest, I heard him say in a flat tone, killing a few petty thieves who snuck into the mansion during the chaos isn't enough to injure me. Oh dear, I'll probably be sleeping with my eyes wide open tonight. The next day, when I awoke, Xiao Dingyan was already gone. Just as I exhaled in relief, a servant from the main courtyard arrived, summoning me to pay respects to the lady. After a quick wash, I followed the attendant. At the entrance to Lady Zhao's quarters, an old woman stood waiting. She informed me haughtily that the lady hadn't risen yet and ordered me to wait in the courtyard. I smiled and agreed. Being lectured on etiquette by an older woman was something I was quite adept at handling. After marrying Zhou Linyuan in my previous life, his widowed mother had given me no end of trouble, so I was used to it by now. After waiting a long while, Ruishue went ahead and found me a chair to sit on. She said, "Young madam, your constitution is delicate. If you exhaust yourself, the general would surely be heartbroken." Ruishue, the maid Xiao Dingyan assigned to me, was a master of blatant lies. Though Lady Xiao now managed the inner quarters since the old general's passing, Xiao Dingyan remained the true authority. Hearing this, the matron dared not object, only sulking back inside to report the matter. Moments later, the door swung open from within. As I stepped inside, Lady Xiao froze for a moment before slamming her fist on the table and roaring, "How dare you? A lowly concubine's daughter dares to impersonate the bride? The Shin family clearly holds the general's residence in utter contempt. Servants! Lock her up!" Two burly servants immediately advanced, poised to seize me. My brows furrowed. If I dared marry Xiao Dingyan, I certainly wouldn't let others bully me. Dare touch me, and I'll have the general chop you up to feed the pigs. Xiao Dingyan's reputation as the living Yama was well known, and it seemed quite useful now. Seeing the servants hesitate and halt, I chuckled softly before addressing Lady Xiao. The betrothal between the Xiao and Shin families was arranged by my late mother-in-law. It was she who bound her fate to mine. The bride she designated was always meant to be me. How could there be any question of a substitute bride? Moreover, I hear that when you entered this household, the 3 letters and 6 rites had not yet been performed before your father-in-law passed away. The general, in his kindness, spared you the formality. Now that he has taken a wife, I am the rightful mistress of this house. I urge you to relinquish the household management promptly, lest you incur the general's displeasure and be cast out, which would be most unfortunate. This secret was shared with me as an anecdote by Zhou Linyuan after he became chief minister in my previous life. Few know of it. Upon hearing this, Lady Zhao's face flushed crimson with fury. She immediately tried to drag me to confront Xiao Dingyan. But before we could step out of the room, Fengxian, standing beside Xiao Dingyan, spoke. "My lord says the young mistress's words reflect his own views. Leave them be." Fengxian mirrored Xiao Dingyan's temperament, sparing in words and cold as ice, commanding an intimidating presence. Yet to me, he seemed strangely familiar. Perhaps through his silhouette, I glimpsed once more that youth standing sword-wielding in the rain-drenched night. This time, however, a flicker of warmth stirred within me. The very next day, Lady Xiao claimed illness, entrusting all household affairs, great and small, to me. She wanted to see me fail, but I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. I had plenty of experience managing household affairs. Even the most unruly servants had their ways of being dealt with. Lady Xiao grew so frantic she coughed up blood, yet never saw me beg for mercy. Her anger alone turned handfuls of her hair white. Only after I had sorted out the inner quarters did I realize it had been days since I'd seen Xiao Dingyan. Ruishue mentioned that since the late madam's passing, he'd spent most nights at the barracks these past 2 years, not even returning home for the new year. I hummed in acknowledgement, my mind drifting inexplicably back to our wedding night, Xiao Dingyan sleeping on the floor. He'd slept with his arms crossed, brows furrowed, his sword never far from his side. Moonlight spilled over his crimson wedding robes, casting a lonely glow around him. I shook my head. Xiao Dingyan lived a life on the edge of a blade. Since fate had led me to marry him, I should start planning for the future sooner rather than later. With me by his side, he wouldn't be a short-lived ghost. Only later did I learn that the Shin family had sent several invitations for me to return for a post-wedding visit, all intercepted by Xiao Ding'an. He declined every social obligation, citing overwhelming military duties. I welcomed the peace, but the Shin family faced endless troubles. My stepmother had believed Shin Xiao could climb the general's mansion like a mighty tree. Before the wedding, she'd poured silver into the household to curry favor with the Xiao family. But now, after the Xiao matriarch suffered a setback through me, she not only severed ties with her but also rallied the noble ladies of the capital to isolate her. Behind the scenes, she spread countless slanders about the Shin family. These rumors reached the ears of noble households everywhere, making even my father's position in court precarious. They blamed me for all of it. Though I had long ago written letters explaining my elder sister's actions, they refused to believe me. They were convinced I had schemed to steal this marriage, bringing misfortune upon the Shin family. I had long since severed all ties with the Shin family. Their slander no longer troubled me. My thoughts were solely occupied with Xiao Ding'an. Within a mere fortnight, I dismissed numerous servants from the general's residence, including some who had served for many years. Though Xiao Ding'an never inquired, I sent a letter to the military camp. Beyond recounting household matters, I concluded, servants who prove disloyal must not be retained. With a heavy heart, I received his reply. All matters at the residence, decide as you see fit. 8 simple words, yet they held absolute trust. My heart fluttered slightly, an indescribable sensation I'd never felt before. With the purge of the residence nearly complete, I recalled something I'd heard by chance in my past life. Some said that during Xiao Ding'an's battle against the northern Chang, he had initially secured a complete retreat. Yet for reasons unknown, he suddenly ventured deep into enemy territory alone. Though he claimed the northern Chang king's head, he suffered severe wounds and ultimately did not return. Because of this incident, the northern Chang dared not invade for years, allowing the border townspeople to recover and rebuild. Despite this, many still criticized Xiao Ding'an, calling him reckless and impetuous, a man of courage but no strategy, claiming this had cost him his life. At this thought, my brow furrowed deeply. Xiao Ding'an was no mere hothead who flaunted his bravery. There must be more to this story. Perhaps there were traitors among his own men? This couldn't wait. I had to get to the bottom of it. Xiao Ding'an rarely returned to the manor, so I would find a reason to seek him out. A trip to the military camp might yield new insights. That day, the carriage waited outside the manor early. Worried Xiao Ding'an might object to my going out, I simply didn't tell him. The soldiers outside the camp recognized the coachman from the general's residence. Hearing it was I who had come, they greeted me with a respectful "Good day, madam," and ushered me inside. Carrying the food box, I stepped down from the carriage. As I walked, I heard him say, "The general is currently training the soldiers at the drill ground. He may not be able to leave immediately. Please don't be upset, madam." I shook my head. No rush. I'll wait at his camp. Lu Er escorted me to the main tent before departing. He mentioned that while military orders barred entry to anyone but the commander, as the general's wife, I was exempt from such regulations. Suppressing a smile, I lifted the curtain and stepped inside. The tent was much larger than I'd imagined. I laid out the dishes I'd prepared early that morning on the table, mentally rehearsing how I'd later remind Xiao Ding'an to be wary of those around him. I couldn't very well say, I've lived 2 lifetimes and know he might die in 5 years. Suddenly, a clattering sound reached my ears. My hands, holding the bowls and dishes, froze slightly. Something was wrong, someone was in the tent. But Lu Er had clearly said Xiao Ding'an wasn't here right now. Could it be? I'd actually stumbled upon a spy? My heart pounded wildly, and for a moment I forgot to call for help. I pulled the hairpin from my hair, clutched it to my chest, and steeled myself to follow the sound deeper into the tent. But just as I rounded the screen, I beheld a scene straight out of a painting, a handsome man bathing. Startled, I spun away, only to trip over my own feet and crash face-first into the tub. The man, equally startled, scrambled to his feet, still half-dressed, ready to flee. I couldn't stop him in time and could only shut my eyes tightly. Just then, a black cloak flew from afar and landed on me, covering my eyes. Then someone scooped me up and held me close. A cold, sharp voice came from above, Get dressed and get out. The rustle of fabric followed as the man dressed, muttering under his breath, "Cousin, I didn't know sister-in-law would come. Why do you only scold me and not her? It's not fair." His voice grew fainter and fainter, barely audible by the end. What I hadn't anticipated was that he was Xiao Dingin's cousin, Qin Ruilan, the young master of the Minister of Justice's household, a notorious playboy in the capital. I'd heard that the late madam had severed ties with the Qin family after eloping to marry another. Yet judging by Qin Ruilan's words and actions today, he was clearly quite familiar with Xiao Dingin. Rumors, it seems, cannot be trusted. After standing too long, I swayed slightly. The arm around my waist tightened a bit more. My head was buried against his chest, my cheek feeling cool, likely from pressing against his silver armor. Sniffing carefully, the armor seemed to carry a faint scent of blood. In a daze, a vision flashed through my mind, someone emerging from a sea of corpses and blood. The young general, renowned for his military exploits. All admired his fame, yet none knew the perils he faced. My hand rose unconsciously, but before it could touch his chest, Xiao Dingin pulled me back. I only learned moments ago that uncle had sent him to the military camp. Ruilan is mischievous but fundamentally good-natured. I won't let him speak of today's events. This was the first time I'd heard him speak so much. Noticing his slightly flushed earlobes, I blurted out, "Are you explaining yourself to me?" Only after the words left my mouth did I realize how wrong they sounded. Even if that tub held a beauty, Xiao Dingin wouldn't need to explain himself to me. I brought some food from the mansion. Have you had lunch yet, General? Perhaps you'd like to try my cooking? I said. Xiao Dingin glanced at the table, then after a long moment uttered a single word, "Good." What I hadn't anticipated was how quickly he devoured the meal. Before I could broach the main topic, his bowl was already empty. Noticing the surprise in my eyes, he murmured softly, "My apologies. In warfare, timing is paramount. I'm accustomed to wolfing down meals. Your fine food would be wasted on me." I hastily waved my hands. No, no, no. General, you are a man of great achievement. To be of service to you is truly my honor. This was the absolute truth. If everyone around the general could care for him as deeply as I do, that would be the most important thing. At these words, Xiao Dingin's gaze burned like fire, as if trying to pierce my very thoughts. I smiled with innocent simplicity. Just as the tension hung heavy, footsteps approached outside the tent. It was a camp soldier summoning Xiao Dingin on urgent business. Before rising to leave, he ordered 2 guards to escort me back to my residence. Standing at the doorway, I watched his receding figure and suddenly called out, "General, may I bring you food again?" The soldier beside him turned to look at me, then glanced at Xiao Dingin, who had halted. With a smile, he nudged the general's shoulder. My face flushed crimson instantly. Just as I was about to retreat, a voice came from ahead, "As you wish." My heart felt like a garden in full bloom. Over the next 2 months, I would prepare meals every few days and bring them to the camp to share with Xiao Dingin. Additionally, during the sweltering summer days, soldiers often fainted from the heat during training. So I had the maids in the mansion help me prepare cooling soups to combat the heat, delivering them to the camp daily. This recipe was one I'd bought from a wandering physician in my past life. Back then, Zhou Linyuan was preparing for the provincial exams but couldn't bear the sweltering heat. I tried every method to help him beat the summer heat and stumbled upon this recipe, brewing it for him daily. Thinking of how such a good recipe was wasted on a dog in my past life made my heart ache terribly. Fortunately, this time, it was being consumed by brave young men defending our homeland. Xiao Dingin never voiced his gratitude, but he began returning to the manor more frequently. And in my chambers, curious little trinkets would always appear. When I asked Ruishui about them, she said Feng Xian had placed them there. She had seen him do it several times but hadn't stopped him. I curved my lips slightly, carefully storing each one away. Half a year later, Xiao Dingin received the emperor's imperial decree, ordering him to lead troops to the northern frontier shortly. Upon hearing the news, my heart leapt in alarm. Too soon. According to my past life's memories, he should have departed for the north only 2 years after purging the treacherous ministers. With political enemies still present, this campaign would be far more perilous than in my previous existence. Worry kept me sleepless for days, and I no longer cared about the risk of my rebirth secret being exposed. Before his departure, I wrote down the few crucial matters I remembered on paper, claiming I had glimpsed them in a dream, hoping they might be of some use to him. Xiao Dingyan tucked it into his robe and, for the first time ever, gave me a smile. "Rest assured, I will return safely." I nodded. "Xiao Dingyan, you must not break your word." Standing atop the city walls, I watched the vast army recede into the distance, a vague unease settling in my heart. "Young madam, the wind is rising. We should return." I pulled my cloak tighter around my shoulders and replied to Rui Shui beside me, "No. To the examination hall." As luck would have it, today was also the day the autumn examination results were posted. I wanted to see if Zhou Linyuan, with his beauty in his arms, would still pass this time. When we arrived, the wall outside the examination hall was already crowded with people. Soon, Ruishua returned to the carriage and handed me the copied list of results. I stared at it. Zhou Linyuan's name was still there. Only this time, he wasn't the top scholar, but the second-place scholar. It seemed Shen Xiao had still affected him. The wind lifted the soft curtains, letting the chill pour into the carriage. I rubbed the paper in my hand, my gaze drifting absently to the occasional passerby. Though only third place, Zhou Linyuan had earned the right to retake the spring examinations. If he succeeded, I would have lived this life for nothing. Fortunately, I still had a trump card up my sleeve. A few days later, I appeared at Fengxian Pavilion dressed as a man. With 100 taels of silver, I bought the freedom of Orchid, an obscure girl within the house. The madam, mistaking me for a foolish, money-spending outsider, asked no questions. Upon receiving the silver, she cheerfully released her. Orchid stepped out of the house, her hand fluttering flirtatiously on my shoulder as her words dripped with teasing. I shook off the goosebumps covering my body before speaking softly. "Brother Zhou has done me a great favor. Finding his long-lost childhood sweetheart is an honor for me. Now that Miss Lin has been freed, she should go south of the city to find her old friend. Brother Zhou is now a successful scholar, destined for great things. When he remembers your companionship, he will treat you even better than before." Lin Yanjiao was Zhou Linyuan's childhood sweetheart. 2 years prior, she'd followed him to the capital, intending to sell hand-embroidered handkerchiefs to supplement their household income. Yet somehow, she'd been lured away by traffickers and ended up at Fengxian Pavilion. In a past life, a minor official had learned of her plight, redeemed her, and presented her to Zhou Linyuan as a gesture of ingratiation. Zhou Linyuan, being nostalgic, took Lin Yanjiao as a concubine and kept her. Perhaps from her experiences in the world, she was exceptionally skilled at wearing him down. Zhou Linyuan did many foolish things for her sake. By then, I was too ill to manage the household. Yet, when I heard Shen Xiao had been so enraged by her that she smashed everything in her room, I felt a rare flicker of amusement. This time, I redeemed her freedom early. Though I had ulterior motives, it also repaid her kindness for tormenting Shen Xiao on my behalf. Lin Yanjiao did not disappoint. Right up until the day before the imperial examinations, Zhou Linyuan was still headache-inducing, caught in the constant quarrels between the two women by his side. Those incapable of remaining faithful to one person will inevitably pay the price. Sure enough, Zhou Linyuan failed the spring examinations. If that were all, it wouldn't matter, he could simply try again next time. But Zhou Linyuan happened to spot me among the crowd checking the results. He strode forward, his eyes gleaming. "Ollie, you still care for me after all. Why else would you come here? How shameless!" I ignored him, turning to leave. This action seemed to pierce his already fragile pride. Zhou Linyuan followed with vicious intent, reaching out to grab my arm. But before his fingers could touch me, he was kicked flying by someone beside us. He broke his leg in the fall, ending any chance of entering officialdom. The carriage swayed back and forth on the journey home. Through the cotton curtain, I asked the attendant outside, "Fengxian, you didn't accompany the army north?" He replied, "The master ordered me to secretly protect the young mistress. I was merely following orders." Xiao Dingyan. When might the general return? I pressed. Xiao Dingyan never sent home letters, so I often brazenly visited the homes of his personal guards to offer condolences. More than condolences, I sought to glean tidings of him from their correspondence. Fortunately, the war seemed to be going well. Our forces won victory after victory, so his return must be near. It should be soon. Feng Xian murmured, gazing into the distance. Soon, soon. I silently echoed his words. The longing to see that person reached its peak at that moment. Yet before his safe return, I encountered trouble first. That day, I was reviewing ledgers in my room. Suddenly, several constables burst into the courtyard. Without explanation, they attempted to take me away. Feng Xian was about to fight back, but I stopped him. Seeing their formidable force, I thought, if they're after me, so be it. But if they're after Xiao Ding'an? He was now on the battlefield, where every move was a matter of life and death. I lived safely in the capital, I couldn't become a burden to him thousands of miles away. Under the emperor's very nose, I'd done nothing wrong. I refused to believe these men could touch me. Following the officers to the prefectural office, I saw Shen Xiao kneeling on the floor the moment I entered. A wave of relief washed over me. If it was her, then this trouble was likely meant for me. Seeing me enter, Shen Xiao's expression was wild with fury, her eyes burning with a desire to tear me limb from limb. Madame Xiaoshen, you stand accused of persecuting your siblings, forcibly seizing a marriage, and ruining another's future. Do you admit to these charges? The magistrate of the capital, his face stern, barked from the dais. After reading the complaint, I knelt directly. Your Honor, Shen Xiao's accusations are false. I deny them all. At this, Shen Xiao lunged forward to seize me. You vile woman. You stole my betrothal, then drugged me and sold me to another. How else would I have ended up in this wretched state? You are the cause of all my misfortune. Her skill in stirring up trouble remained undiminished, and her acting grew ever more convincing, as if she truly bore the weight of a colossal injustice. The crowd gathered outside the magistrate's office grew restless, many voicing their indignation on her behalf. Amidst the clamor, the chief magistrate slammed his gavel, finally restoring order. Seeing her advantage, Shen Xiao pressed on, Your Honor, I have additional witnesses who can confirm my words are true. Then, Lady Xiao, Zhou Linyuan, my stepmother, and finally my father were summoned and led into the courtroom. In unison, they declared that Shen Xiao was the one originally betrothed to marry into the general's household. I snorted derisively. My enemies despised me, and my own kin loathed me. Under such overwhelming testimony, I found myself unable to refute it. Any protest would be futile. In a final desperate plea, I cried out, Your Honor, the bridegroom himself is still thousands of miles away. How can you possibly settle this case based on mere empty words? The general's return draws near. Should he discover your wrongful conviction of this humble servant, would you dare bear the brunt of his wrath? At these words, the prefect's expression shifted slightly. Though Xiao Ding'an was 1,000 miles away, he alone could protect me now. The prefect harbored reservations, yet he could not disregard the testimony before him. After much deliberation, he could only order my temporary confinement in prison, awaiting Xiao Ding'an's return for judgment. As I was led away, Shen Xiao's heart still burned with resentment. As the saying goes, the night is long and full of troubles. She wanted to kill me immediately and take my place. Fortunately, the jailer had military background and had tasted my cooling summer soup before, treating me with courtesy. Seeing I faced no immediate danger, Feng Xian abandoned his plans to break me out. The prefect of Jingzhou had me brought before him every 3 days as required by law, stating that if I confessed the truth, I might receive leniency. Each time, I replied only, Since I am innocent, there is nothing to confess. I trust your honor will discern the truth. Soon after, news of Xiao Ding'an's great victory over the northern Chang spread throughout the capital. Calculating the timeline, I realized the campaign that had lasted 2 years in my past life had now concluded over a year earlier. But in the end, peace was all that mattered. Peace was all that mattered. The trouble was, this news also reached Shen Xiao's ears. Late at night, the moonlight faded. Lying on the wooden bed, I was suddenly roused by footsteps growing louder. My eyes fluttered open to see Shen Xiao, her expression fierce, clutching a white silk cord. Before I could cry out, she tightened it around my throat, silencing me completely. The suffocating sensation instantly engulfed my entire body. I desperately struggled, clawing at Shen Xiao's hands. Seeing me gradually gasping for breath, she cackled madly, "You worthless slut, just die already. The general's wife should have been me. As long as you commit suicide out of guilt in prison, I can return to the position that belongs to me. After all, no one in this world cares about your life or death." No, Shen Xiao was wrong. Someone cared about me. Someone was willing to protect me. But I had no strength left to argue with her. My arms slowly fell limp at my sides as I plunged into boundless darkness. In my daze, I glimpsed Xiao Dingan's figure. Surrounded by vast grasslands, he galloped swiftly on his steed. I called his name aloud, but no one answered. Helpless, I followed him forward. The horse halted outside the military camp. Xiao Dingan quietly scaled the wall and slipped inside. I wondered why he was being so cautious, until I saw the banner fluttering in the wind above the main tent, clearly the war flag of the Northern Chang. This was the scene from my past life, when Xiao Dingan had charged single-handedly into enemy territory. My gaze shifted inside the tent, following the fallen bodies upward. Xiao Dingan stood with his sword pressed against the North Chang King's throat. His silver armor was already drenched in blood, yet he paid it no mind, demanding, "Where are the Han women Mushing presented to the royal court?" Hearing that name, I froze. Memories I'd buried in the recesses of my mind surged back like a tidal wave. So that's how it was. How could it be like this? In my past life, Zhou Linyuan was ordered to inspect the northern border. I accompanied him northward but was captured by the Northern Chang midway. They confined me and many other Han girls together, later sending us to the prefectural governor's residence. After several transfers, we were ultimately presented as gifts to the Northern Chang king. That was the darkest experience I wished never to recall, deliberately buried deep within my memory. Now that seal has loosened. Counting the days, it coincides precisely with the time Xiao Dingan repelled the Northern Chang army. So, the person he's venturing deep into enemy territory to find is me. No wonder Feng Xian's figure felt so familiar. Not because he resembles Xiao Dingan, but because in my past life, it was Feng Xian who rescued me and the other girls, then sent us back to the capital. But what about Xiao Dingan? Where did he go? The scene shifted. The surroundings were no longer the Northern Chang camp. Only the deep night, vast and boundless. A galloping steed approached from the distance. Looking closer, it seemed to carry a figure upon its back. As it drew nearer, I could see the person was drenched in blood, seemingly without even the rise and fall of breath. The exhausted horse finally collapsed before the city gate, dragging the figure down with it. Just then, the wind lifted his jet-black hair, revealing his true face. My heart twisted in agony, and I cried out in grief, "Xiao Dingan! Xiao Dingan, I'm here." I stared at the man before me in disbelief, tears streaming down my face. Then I wrapped my arms around his neck, exclaiming joyfully, "Xiao Dingan, you're not dead. Thank goodness." The man in my arms paused, sensing my unease, and gently stroked my back. "I'm fine. But you, are you still feeling unwell?" Hearing this, I finally realized that the scenes from my past life I had just witnessed were all a dream. The one who had walked through the gates of death in this life was not Xiao Dingan, but me. So glad, I thought. I slipped out of his embrace, shaking my head with a smile. "It's nothing. You arrived just in time." Whether in past lives or this one, he always rescued me from peril. During my convalescence at the mansion, Xiao Dingan stayed by my side, tending to me with the same devotion as on our wedding night. Only when the palace bestowed the triumphant banquet did he finally depart. After his departure, I summoned Ruixue. Only then did I learn that Xiao Dingan had not only confined Lady Xiao to Shangqing Temple for penance but also imprisoned the entire Shen family. Among them, Zhou Linyuan, for accepting bribes to frame the family of a high minister, was sentenced to 50 strokes of the cane and exile 100 li. As for Shen Xiao, her crimes were unforgivable. In our dynasty, those who plot against the families of high officials face exile for 1,000 li at best, or beheading in public display at worst. No matter the sentence, death was inevitable. Recalling all that had transpired, how could I, as her sister, not come to see her off? The Ministry of Justice's dungeon was cold and damp, with rats scurrying across the floor from time to time. Covering my nose and mouth, I was led by a guard to see Shinxiao. Huddled in a corner with disheveled hair, she muttered, "I am the general's wife," appearing utterly deranged. The guard explained she'd been babbling incoherently since her arrest, not only falsely accusing the Minister of Right's son of planning to raid the chief minister's estate, but also claiming to be an immortal descended to earth with the power to resurrect the dead. No one could restrain her. I raised an eyebrow, understanding fully. I then produced some silver coins and slipped them into his hand. After all, we were once sisters. I wish to speak with her alone. I hope you'll grant me this favor, officer. Very well, madam. Just remember to keep your distance. Don't let her harm you. After the officer left, I looked at Shinxiao in the cell. It was amusing that someone so mad could still keep her hands and face so clean. Shinxiao, are you satisfied with your fate today? No reply came. I let out a soft chuckle, finally voicing the words I'd held back. In my past life, you drove me to a miserable death, yet you yourself met a violent end. In this life, knowing the future, you plotted carefully at every step, only to end up beheaded. Shinxiao, this is your fate. With that, I walked away with grace, leaving Shinxiao behind to scream and curse. As I emerged from the Ministry of Justice, dusk was falling. Gazing up at the star-studded sky and the bright moon, I felt an unprecedented sense of exhilaration. Having slipped out of the mansion unnoticed, I had no carriage to ride. I strolled along the road, turned a corner, and entered the bustling marketplace. Passing by night strollers, I encountered a vendor hawking goods from his shoulder poles. Tossing a few copper coins his way, I bought some unnamed pear cakes. Surprisingly, the pear cakes were sweet and delicious, melting in my mouth. Just as I was enjoying them, I pushed through the crowd and spotted Xiao Ding'an standing not far away. In the dim lamplight, his shadow stretched long, meeting mine at the tips of my toes. And in his hand was the same pear cake I had bought. A faint smile touched my lips as I quickened my pace toward him. "General, let's go home." Xiao Ding'an looked at the hand linked through his arm, his eyes sparkling with starlight. "All right. Let's go home." Side story, I never quite understood when Xiao Ding'an first began to care for me. Until this day, when I stumbled upon several bundles of letters in an old trunk. Apart from a few wartime letters to his family that were never sent, most were written by Xiao Ding'an to his late first wife. Amidst the densely packed characters, I always found my own name. "Mother, you unilaterally arranged the marriage between the Xiao and Shin families, unaware that Shin Qingli dreaded me. But it suits me well, my ambitions lie in the frontier, and I have no desire to wed such a delicate woman. Mother, I have avenged you." The entire Wang clan was exiled 1,000 miles away. The one who remained, had father not shielded her, I would have made her come down to apologize to you. When I marry in the future, I will guard her with all my heart, never letting her be harmed. Shin Qingli, Shin Qingli. Mother, is she truly a suitable match for your son? Mother, when I went to the Shin household today to propose, I saw Shin Qingli. She seemed different. Though she still feared me, her former spoiled arrogance had vanished, replaced by a newfound intelligence. This intrigued me greatly. Mother, I have married. My bride is Shin Qingli, as you wished. This final letter was written after Shinxiao attempted to kill me, when my life hung by a thread. Mother, if you know this in the afterlife, I beg you, let her return. At the letter's end, ink had smudged where moisture had seeped through. I gently traced the blurred marks, tears already brimming in my eyes. Then I carefully repacked the letter and returned it to its original place. For even without seeing these words, I never doubted Xiao Ding'an's sincerity toward me. The midday sun blazed fiercely. I instructed Ruishua and Fengxian to load the cooling soup onto the cart, then set off toward the military camp. Xiao Ding'an spotted me and came running from afar. He gently supported my waist, his face filled with concern. "Ali, you're carrying a child. Please don't come personally next time." I pouted. "What can I do? Our little one just keeps wanting his father." "You," he said, tapping my nose with a resigned smile. As it turned out, Xiao Ding'an's worries were not unfounded. Half a month later, I indeed experienced complications with my pregnancy while at the camp. Fortunately, he had prepared ahead of time, securing a skilled midwife to stand by our side. Soon after, a piercing cry echoed across the camp. Xiao Dinging cradled our child, sitting beside me with tender eyes fixed on my face. In that moment, I embarked upon a brand new chapter of life. The end.